Hi, this is GK. Today I would like to talk about my problems with Sony codecs on their cameras. So the issue is, for content like that, which is my channel or some other social media platforms, I would like to use the most efficient codec that's available to save on storage, and I don't see the point of using RAW or any other high gigabit storage just to record talking head video, right? The problem is that on Sony cameras, even though I live in Europe, I have to use NTSC to achieve that. Why? Well, that's a good question for Sony, but my issue is that if you would like to use H.65, which Sony calls, let me check, because those names sometimes are pretty sophisticated, XAVC HS. H.65 is very efficient codec, and the other thing is it's 10-bit by default. I believe on Sony cameras you cannot choose like HS 8-bit. It's 10-bit by default in every setting, in every resolution, I hope. The other thing, the bitrate that gives me, for example, 50, 4:2, 10-bit on this camera, Sony a7 IV, the bitrate that gives me, for example, 50, 4:2, 10-bit on this camera, Sony a7 IV, on 128 gig card allows me to record for more than 3 hours, which is beautiful. I can talk and talk, make takes and takes without losing any shots. And the other thing, in this 50 megabits bitrate, it's 4:2 color sampling, which is awesome. If I want to use H.65, most efficient codec nowadays on Sony camera, in 25 frames per second, which is standard in Europe, in PAL, then I cannot use this codec. It's only available in 50 frames per second. Why? I don't know. I have no idea. The funny part is, if I switch to NTSC, and that's my recommendation, I can use it on 24, 60, and 120 on X30 that I own, and it's recording me right now. The caveat of this, let's say, solution for issue that Sony gives us as Europeans, certain frame rates and certain shutter speeds, it's pretty hard to avoid the flickering. So the safe one is probably 24. You can't go wrong with that. It always works because you set the shutter speed to 50 or 48, should be fine with no issues. I can confirm that. Most footage I shoot is in 24, right? So there's no problem with this frame rate. But on the higher ones, they can start to be problematic, especially with low quality LED lights, with the power supplies that have high THD. Their power supplies are supplying power to those LEDs in such a manner that those LEDs are not putting the light out constantly. They're pulsating, but very quickly, which we don't see. But our cameras in higher frame rate can see that. Now, the remedy in my testing for, I don't know, last year is that if you choose 60 frames per second, you can either start with 125 of shutter speed, and if you see the flickering, reduce it to 1/100. Most of the time it should be solved, because in PAL also you have 50 frames per second instead of 60, and you set 1/100. Now, the biggest issue I have is with 120 frames per second. There is a concept of shutter angle, right? And most of YouTube tutorials will tell you use 180. If you would like to stick to 180 degrees shutter rule, then you would have to, on 120 frames per second, set it for around 1/240 or 1/250, right? The problem with that is such a high shutter speed would flicker like crazy. In my kitchen, I have a pretty low quality LED light, and I cannot get it in higher frame rates. My solution is, because all the footage that I'm recording in 120 will be slowed down, right? So the solution is to lower the shutter speed 1/120, which is 1:1, right? But the footage will be slowed down, and 1/120, the motion blur would be pretty natural. Then in this like safe shutter speed, you shouldn't get any flickering problems. The funny part, which makes me laugh a bit, is that in NTSC that I have to use, you have standard frame rates of 24, 30 and 60, and 120 is extra on my particular cameras. Now, guess what? There's also one frame rate that's missing H.265 support, which is 30 frames per second. It cannot be used in NTSC with XAVC HS. Well, I would like Sony to solve that, and I think it should be done a long time ago. First time it occurred to me that there's such an issue. I was Googling this problem, and what I found, when Sony A7S III came out, which was a few years ago, there were first forum threads where people were asking, where is H.265 on PAL in standard 25, right? And people were like, it works on mine, but then they were exchanging the information about which region they are in. And what came out is that people who saw H.265 were on NTSC, and people who were on PAL didn't. So this is a quick tip for European shooters. If your footage is only going out digitally to the internet, I don't see the point of recording gigabytes on some personal videos or YouTube channels like that. If it's a client, of course, keep it in PAL from the beginning. But if it's video like that or some street shooting, I don't see the point of wasting storage. If you would like to see more videos like that, subscribe to this channel or visit my website. Link is in the description.